use a special proprietary blend of cultures, and that's kind of what sets ours apart from everyone else's. So we really have put a lot of R&D time into perfecting our cam blue, which is a mix of camembert and blue, and then we also have our blue cheese. And both are found in top vegan restaurants around the country and in, really cool stores. And we recently learned, too, that our aged cheese has been served at the White House.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Startup CPG podcast. This is Grace, and I'm here with another Founder Friday. Today, I'm talking to Dina DiCenzo, the co-founder of RIND, a vegan cheese brand that actually rivals dairy. Dina created this brand in her kitchen after feeling disappointed by the vegan cheeses on the market and developed a product unlike anything else out there. We chat about their approach to breaking into retail, their aged camembert-style cheese versus their sliceable deli cheese, and where Dina sees RIND going in the future. What's more, RIND was actually a Shelfie winner in 2024 for their camembert/blue cheese, which is so delicious, and I'm personally a fan. But I hope you all enjoy this episode, and as always, let me know what you think. Hi, Dina. Welcome to the show. Super excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
Yes. So I'd love to start just by having you introduce yourself and your brand, which is RIND, a vegan cheese brand. I mean, I guess I kind of just did it, but you can say it in more detail. But I'd love for you to introduce yourself and RIND to our listeners.
Sure. I'm Dina DiCenzo, and I am co-founder of RIND. We are a vegan cheese company based in Brooklyn, New York. We have two brands. We have our RIND by Dina and Joshua, and we also have our Veggie Underground brand. So our RIND is actually a Shelfie Award winner, and we won it for our Cam Blue this year. We're very excited about that award. It's very exciting. And so our aged cheese was the cheese that we came out with first, way back in the day. And in 2022, we launched our Veggie Underground brand, which is a sliced cheese, and it comes in 3 varieties. It's made with real vegetable puree. It comes in carrot, parsnip, and red bell pepper.
Amazing. And yes, as you said, RIND was a Shelfie winner last year, and it was so good. Like, truly does not taste like vegan cheese. And I feel like there has been so much innovation in vegan cheese over the last, I don't know, X amount of years, because for a while there, I felt like all vegan cheese just tasted like pureed nuts. And your aged cheese, I'm like, I gave it to my dad, who's like obsessed with cheese, and he had no idea it was vegan. He was like, this is delicious. I love it.
We love hearing that. We get that a lot. We use a special proprietary blend of cultures, and that's kind of what sets ours apart from everyone else's. So we really have put a lot of R&D time into perfecting our cam blue, which is a mix of camembert and blue, and then we also have our blue cheese. And both are found in top vegan restaurants around the country and in, really cool stores. And we recently learned, too, that our aged cheese has been served at the White House.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
the chef actually reached out to us just before this year's inauguration and said that, it blew his mind. So that was very exciting to, have him find it so good that he had to say something. So
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. That's how you know you're doing something right.
yeah.
That's awesome. So I'd love to hear a little bit about why you decided to create this brand and a little bit about like how you came to this, because like I said, you guys do make such a uniquely amazing vegan cheese. And yeah, I'd love to hear about like why you committed to doing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you said, vegan cheese was really not in a good place for many, many years. And, it's just not sustainable for dairy to exist. And you have to provide people with a reason to change. And they're not going to change if they don't see a problem with what they're consuming. And if the options are worse than what they're currently consuming. So, even as a vegan, I was really dissatisfied with the options. And so I started making cheese on my own at home. And then Joshua Catcher, my business partner, contacted me after he tried it through a mutual friend who had taken some home. I was like, oh, we gotta do this. So we made the company and started with the aged cheese. And yeah, here we are today. So
Wow.
that was really the impetus was just everything was terrible. Yeah, so I think that's always why things change, you know?
Mm-hmm. Totally. How did you teach yourself to make cheese? Were you just like experimenting? Like, what did that process look like?
Yeah, it was a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error, reading online what's out there, just even from my own taste memories from dairy cheese when I did eat dairy. Because it's not that I didn't like the taste, it's that I really just don't like what it does to animals and to the planet. So to me, food is not as important as an animal's life. So that's why I became vegan. And that's, why I wanted to offer something that was as good as dairy, if possible, to get people to change. And so that they can also be nice to the animals.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's definitely a cheese that I think could turn some heads from the regular dairy cheese because I mean, I'm a broken record at this point, but and we're only like 3 minutes in.
I
But
love the
it
record though. Keep it
yeah.
going.
So how many years ago now was that? Like the first like okay, you connected with Joshua about creating this aged cheese.
I connected with Joshua around 2016. And then maybe it was even 2015, late 2015, I think maybe. And then we launched in 2017 and then became a legal business in 2018. But in that interim, we made a lot of cheese at home. And, there were a lot of failures, a lot of really bad failures too, where you're like, am I going to survive this? But, um, it it ended up working out. So
Yeah. And did either of you have any experience in like CPG or food products or the food world at all?
no. I think Joshua had maybe worked in some restaurants like way back when, but I had no experience in CPG, no experience in the food industry. I mean, I was an equity analyst and I covered some food, but it wasn't, it was at such a higher level. It wasn't the nitty-gritty of the day-to-day struggle and, dealing with daily problems of owning a CPG business.
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah, what were some of those, like, early days problems and struggles when you were in those first few years of just, like, trying to get this product out there?
Um, I think consistency, making the product consistent, because we didn't have the budget for a ton of fancy equipment. And so I think it's harder to create consistency if your equipment is crap. So, money solves a lot of problems but it doesn't solve everything. And I think that has been proven time and time again, actually, over the last couple of years, because we keep seeing private equity coming in and giving people, 20, 30, $46 million and they still can't make a product. So, or they'll make a product and it is just terrible. So, while money can help ease a lot of the pain, it doesn't solve everything if you have a bad product to begin with.
Right, you have to make sure the product itself is good no matter how much money you put into it. I'm curious, once you guys were ready to launch Rind, more officially, what were some of your first steps? Were you, like, selling in the farmers markets, or did you go to restaurants or foods like,
Um,
retail?
yeah, we actually, being in New York, we had some really good connections just from being in the vegan community. There was a vegan cheese shop in Essex Market at the time called Riverdale. And so, Michaela, we've known her for a long time, and she was like, "Hey, I want to sell your cheese." So, there are definitely a lot of like just people in the community who had restaurants and small businesses that we could fit that niche. So they were very helpful in giving us our start. And then, once you start getting a couple of um, stores under your belt, and you start doing more demos and getting word out there and getting like organic media coverage, where you're not paying for ads and stuff, like that earned media really helped a lot too. So it was a slow process, but it happened. And then I think COVID happening actually helped us. We experienced a tremendous growth during COVID because people were starting to realize that animal ag causes pandemics, and they started to become more conscientious of what happens. And so I think that also helped boost the vegan sector in general.
Hmm. So, in that point, with during the pandemic, were people ordering your cheese online, or were they like, was there stores they could go to, or how was that? How was that
There, there were
growing?
stores that were ordering it that were doing shipping at the time. So that helped get it to people who normally would not be able to get it in a local store.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about the pandemic as growing the vegan sector at all. And I'd thought about like frozen or, the ready to go things, but I hadn't thought about its impact on the vegan world and or plant-based world. And that's really interesting to think about. And I'm curious if there's any data out there or like what maybe you've seen anecdotally or also what you've heard from other, vegan businesses like post the pandemic. Has that growth continued? Or has it kind of plateaued?
I think what happened after the pandemic was, people's memories are very short, and they kind of went back to their old buying habits. And also during that time, there was a lot of really bad products launched. And then I think because those products just, there were financial difficulties after the pandemic as well. So I think that combined with bad products put a lot of those businesses actually out of business. And that caused some of the data to show that there was a contraction within the vegan sector, primarily in the meat and cheese areas. Uh, but I mean, I think it was also magnified because people love to, you know, trash the vegan sector in general. And so I think they, made it more of, um, they blew it up more than they should have, because it was just a correction in the market, and every sector has that. And especially when you put a ton of garbage into a sector, it's going to get weeded out eventually, whether it's due to taste changing or due to just people not having the money to waste on really bad products. And I think that's really what happened. So, you know, it's it's recovering, I think, or at least plateaued now. But I also think that we're seeing, in the meat sector, at least, we're seeing a lot of really good meat products come out. So, but I think the dairy sector still can be improved.
Hmm. Yeah, what do you see as the improvements that are necessary in the vegan dairy sector?
I think there are some tech companies working on some things that will create like the next revolution of products. They're creating plant-based casein, which will allow a more natural melt and stretch to cheeses. So that will help, the mozzarellas and the provolones and cheddars, things that melt. But there's still a huge gap where there are more fine aged cheeses like manchego, things that are harder to replicate. And a lot of it has to do with the cultures just are not grown on a vegan substrate still. So that kind of limits what can be made. Um, and so I think um, we're working on some things, but it's going to take some time to get those worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like such a science experiment, like when you're saying things like substrates and cultures. I'm like, That's going over my head. So it makes sense that it would take some time to do these science experiments. But it's exciting to hear that they are happening and that there is, people making steps towards further innovation. I'm curious, thinking of like post-pandemic world, what has been the conversations you've been having with like retailers, either like retail partners that you've continued to work with, and then I also know you've continued to grow Rind since the pandemic into more locations and areas. And so what is that what have those conversations looked like, and what has your strategy been in terms of bringing Rind to retail?
Well, Rind by Dina and Joshua, the the aged cheese, has actually we recently launched in Italy. So we're there nationwide. And so that particular product line continues to be picked up by these higher end stores and more expensive retailers. We're in Whole Foods, we're in Erewhon. Um, so I think that brand will continue to um, be in those types of stores. And they also tend to put our cheese in the dairy section. So people sometimes have a hard time. They're like, we don't find you in Whole Foods. Yeah, you gotta look in the dairy section, which is counterintuitive for vegan cheese, but that's where ours has been determined it belongs, which we're excited about. And for our Veggie Underground, that we're launching that in Central Market actually in the coming weeks. So that is continuing to find small retail chains, that have 10 to 20 stores. It's in some other independent grocery stores around the country. But we're hoping to get that into more food service because that is more scalable and it's easier to make.
We'll be right back.
Are you going to crush it on Amazon this year? It's such an important channel, but it's so hard to do alone, and most agencies are a total ripoff. We can't afford $5,000 a month and a commission on our sales. They just don't get it. That's why I love our partners at Daybreak. They are full service, meaning they do the creative work, the listings, the logistics, and of course, all the ads, all with the most reasonable retainer out there. I work with them personally. I'm so grateful we have such a good partner to recommend out to you, our community. They do evaluate your product first to see if it might be a fit. So if you want them to have a look, email them, startupcpg@daybreak.agency, and they'll do a free audit for you. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about your approach to bringing both your Veggie Underground into food service, and also I know you were saying that the rind, the aged cheese is also in some restaurants, and so can you talk a little bit about your approach to that?
It is, yeah. For Rind, we actually don't do any active marketing with that. Like it is just word of mouth. So the restaurants that pick it up, it's because, they've looked around for, what is considered to be the best vegan cheese. And so they always end up finding us. So then that's how we end up in the restaurants usually. But for Veggie Underground, that's a more competitive market because there's so many companies and so many companies that are much larger than us. Like we're a very small team. We've got 4 people and, there are other companies, the ones that we're competing with, we're competing with private equity groups. They're heavily funded. They all have, $20 to $50 million in funding. Like we're bootstrapped, we're self-funded. But that also means that we can be a little bit more adept. And I think also because we are vegan, we're vegan owned and everyone who works here just happens to be vegan. It was accidental. But I think because we're also, we're all invested in having a product that we like and that we can eat and enjoy rather than we're just trying to make money off of a growing sector. I think that is really what differentiates us. So we put a little more thought into our product and, we were making vegan cheese at home for years, like even prior to making aged cheese, just since like you can go back to the 70s, there have been vegans making cheese out of carrots and whatnot. And so, we were making that at home. We're like, why wouldn't this be, like you make it as a cheese sauce, so it's like melty. So why can't it be a slice and actually offer something more, have the hidden vegetables aspect to the cheese. And it ends up making it, more flavorful. The coloring is all natural from it, from the vegetables that's in it. Um, and it just provides a better eating experience, and it melts and stretches a little bit, not like a castane stretch, but, you get some in there. And the fact that it just tastes and melts is so big for vegan cheese, because everything tastes like plastic and doesn't melt, or, like you've got to hold it up to the sun, like be like 2 feet from the sun to have it melt. It's just,
Right.
it's atrocious. So, I think that because we want people to have a good experience with vegan cheese, because you really only get one chance sometimes to reach the consumer. And if they've had bad vegan cheese in the past, they don't want to try it again, So that's one thing that we do come across every now and then at our demos, or people who were burned by a bad product in the past. We're like, come on, it's free, just try it. You can spit it out. We won't care. So, and they
Do
never
they
spit
try it?
They do. They always try it. They're like, okay, fine. And they're like, oh, wait, okay, this is great. I wish I'd had this before, because then I would have been more open to it all these years, So I think at least, we're changing minds slowly. So one demo at a time.
Yeah. Do you find there's any mind changing that needs to happen when you're talking to like retail buyers or even these food service like people?
A lot of these people are not vegan and they don't care. And it's really hard to change habits, and it's hard to change um things that people have been just do. Like there's actually I don't know if I should even go into this. There's like a physical addiction component to dairy, because there are casomorphins in it, which bind to the mu receptors, which are what opioids bind to, and it's meant to bond the baby and the mother of cows. So
Wow.
when people eat dairy, they have that same effect, and that's why dairy is one of the hardest things to give up, because there is that, you know, that addiction to it. So when you're asking people to give up not only just a habit, that, maybe it's their childhood memories, they've eaten that way for 30, 40 years, whatever it might be. And then you tell them like, okay, everything you've been doing is wrong and you have to give this up. It just doesn't go over well. Or, even saying like, can you carry this product? It threatens them in some way sometimes. They feel like you are asking them to completely change themselves, even if that's not what you're asking at all.
Right. Right. It's like sometimes you could buy the vegan cheese that's really good instead of the regular cheese, and that would be cool.
Exactly. Like just do less of what you're doing,
Mhm.
or be
Mhm.
open to new experiences. And they make the decision though, not only for themselves, but they're making it for their customer base. So, and the other problem too, with the other challenge, one of the big challenges to getting into stores, other than just the mindset, is people pay brokers a lot of money, and these brokers have connections. So, if there's a company, again, it all goes back to money. Like if you've got 20 million under your belt, you can afford to pay your broker 10,000 a month to go get you in restaurants, on shelves in stores. And we don't have that. So we have to be there by merit. So, or someone who like, was just like, okay, I feel bad for you. I'll give you a chance. But it has to be someone who's like open-minded enough and is not, connected to money. That's really what it comes down to. So, um, and even though these people are paying brokers a ton of money to get on shelves, sometimes, they don't have the staying power. But in a lot of cases, they will, just because if they're only offering like two products on the shelf and there's any vegans in the area, or even people just who are lactose intolerant or who are trying to lower their cholesterol or deal with hypertension or diabetes, they may want to eat those products, even like you said, some of the time.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like the customer base of both Rind, the aged cheese, and Veggie Underground, and I'm curious how you do market to your customers because for vegans, it sounds like it's a relatively easy sell. Like, this is a great vegan cheese. But do you take different approaches to like the vegan marketing versus the, maybe curious vegan person or the lactose intolerant person? Or like, how do you market Rind and Veggie Underground to like this wide base of possible customers?
We pretty much just have one marketing plan, and that's, yeah, it's vegan, but it tastes great. Whether you love dairy or not, this is the cheese for you. Especially with our aged cheese because it is made exactly how they make the dairy version. So, we just change out the base and we make sure that our cultures are vegan as well. So, um, that's a little bit easier, I think, for consumers who eat aged cheese because the people who are eating the blue cheese, the stinkier cheeses, the more pungent cheeses, they're already a little bit more adventurous in their eating. So they're willing to try things. Um, Whereas the sliced cheese is a different consumer. And that's the person who, is more of a standard middle of the road eater, like not very adventurous. They like their grilled cheeses, they like their hamburgers, they like their pizza. Um, so I think for that, we do say it's vegan, it just tastes great, but this is also made with vegetables and, you know, try it. So, um, we don't really try to like, market it like it's dairy. Try to, you know, sidestep what we're doing at all. We don't see a need to, and if we usually are pretty successful at convincing people to at least try it.
Hmm. And is this when you're saying convince people to try it, is this like in a demo setting or do you guys do any online marketing or are you kind of all focused on in-person activations?
It's usually demos, where it's convincing people to try it. When we do our demos, they do go very well. We usually, sell out when we do them. So, if you can get the consumer to try it, then they'll tell their friends and, then it becomes more of word of mouth. So I think the demos are very important. And I
Mm-hmm.
think showing up as, an owner and founder to do demos, is really important. People really love to meet the owners of the companies, which is kind of surprising to me for some reason, but yeah, they do like it. So
Yeah.
it's
How do you manage that as, as you said, a small team, like wanting to do all these demos and wanting to get out there and also having so much responsibility and having a small team of your growing business?
we do have to be selective where we do
Mm-hmm.
demos. But we do trade shows a lot to try to reach buyers, and then the stores will sometimes hold their own demos without us. But they definitely do go way better when someone from our team is there. Even over hiring a demo company, like the demo companies, just they don't have that same enthusiasm or passion or drive to really convey the mission of the products, and to make sure that the customer really understands what the company is about and what the products are. So, um, we do our best to do demos. Eventually, at some point, it's just going to be totally out of control. We're not going to be able to service all the stores. But for now, like, we've been doing an okay job with that.
Mm. How do you select like which stores or locations feel most important to demo at?
Some stores actually mandate it, so we'll do that.
No choice there.
Yeah, no, if we don't have a choice, we do it. But it's also like the stores where we think we're gonna have the highest impact. Um, that's usually what we'll prioritize. Because there's some stores, even if it's within the same company, there's some locations of those stores that just might not be as fruitful because of the client base there. for whatever reason, whether it's the area it's in or the city or region or whatever. So that's usually, and we also take into account like who's available, who can do it. Are we gonna be close by? Like, next month we're gonna be in Chicago at the National Restaurant Association show for food service. And we happen to be in some stores in that area, and so we're gonna try to set some demos up while we're there as well. So
That's super exciting. How are you guys preparing to go to, the National Restaurant Association and in trade shows in general? How do you guys prepare for that and approach them?
usually it's just a last minute panic sort of thing. you know, like 2 or 3 days before we have to like either ship our stuff there or actually drag it over to the convention center.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what are we doing? Throw it into a box, ship it off. We have a pretty basic setup. We don't spend a lot of money on our booth
Mm-hmm.
because we feel that the product is strong enough to actually like represent us well. And while we do have a banner and we do have a tablecloth, like we just don't go out of our way for, like wasting money on swag that people are just going to throw out later anyway. And that kind of goes against our sustainability mission anyway. But we usually just demo our cheese straight up. We don't put jam on it like, some other people do to mask the flavor. You want people to try it, and in and of itself and really get that full rind effect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thinking of other things that are coming down, the pipeline for Rind and Veggie Underground this year, besides the trade show, but like, what do you see for the second half of this year? What are your priorities for Rind, and what are you guys really trying to focus on this year?
We really are focusing on food service and then expanding the retail reach. We want to be in additional small chains across the country with Veggie Underground. So we are really pushing the expansion of Veggie Underground as well as supporting the current distribution of Rind.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super, super exciting. And I was saying before we started recording that there's a great vegan restaurant in Philly that I'm actually going to soon. And I'm going to be like, do you guys have rind cheese here? And
Yes.
maybe they'll pick you guys up because they should.
I
Um,
agree.
yeah. That's really exciting though, to see like what comes out of all of these, trade shows and like where else Rind slash Veggie Underground can go next. A question I always like to ask as we come to the end is how can our Startup CPG listeners and Startup CPG community support Rind and follow along and buy Rind?
Yeah, well, you can go to our website and buy it there. We actually just launched Veggie Underground on Amazon the last 2 weeks or so. So you can buy it there. Give us good reviews. That always helps. Tell friends, tell families, and most importantly, badger your local buyer at your stores. That really goes a long way for small companies because all they need are a couple people saying, I want to buy this. And, they'll say, oh, our customers are willing to buy this. If these couple of people will, then there must be others that will as well in our area. So, don't underestimate the power of a lot of individuals,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna go talk to my local shops ASAP. Well, it was so much fun to chat with you, Dina, and I can't wait to see what happens next and where Rind slash Veggie Underground go. And good luck with the trade show and all of the above. And yeah, it was great to have you on.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I always love working with Startup CPG. I think it's been a very important force in our growth, actually. It's been very helpful. So I think it's important for every small startup out there to be a part of it if you've got a CPG company. So lots of great resources and support. So, and we're actually in the Startup CPG section this summer at the Fancy Food Show. So we're very excited.
Can't wait. The Fancy Food Show is like the most fun trade show, I think, too.
Oh,
So
it is.
it's a great one to be at, and thrilled you'll be in the Startup CPG section, which is also a very fun section.
It is so much fun. That's actually why we were like, oh, we got to be there this year.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I can't wait. Hopefully I'll see you there. And yeah, great talking to you.
Great talking to you too.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would help us out so much if you left a 5-star review on ratethispodcast.com/startupcpg. I am Grace Kennedy, the host of the Founder Feature Series, so feel free to add me on LinkedIn or reach out to me on Slack. I'm always on the hunt for new and exciting brands to feature. And if you're a potential sponsor who would like to appear on the podcast, please email partnerships@startupcpg.com. And finally, as a reminder for anyone listening, if you haven't already, we would love for you to join our community on Slack. You can sign up via our website, startupcpg.com.